When I was in Newcastle, we didn't have a lot of great venues, and I was always aware of parties that were going on in the rest of the UK. Bought a pair of decks off eBay, like a pair of 1210s and just a cheap mixer, and I suppose that's where it started really. There was a night called People Are Germs at the Old Blue Last, which we quite idolised, and they always seem to have these immensely well-curated artists. That whole concept of running a club night in a pub hadn't really filtered through up north, and we were doing it, but people thought we were like weird for doing it. We'd hire out a basement and people would be like, why aren't you doing it in this dry, you know, cocktail bar? And it's like, actually I don't want to do it there, I want to do it in this grimy underground basement and like hiring a PA and just, you know, the decks are next to the bar taps, you know what I mean? I came to London and we didn't have a lot of money, we were just working in retail. You know, we needed somewhere to go for a night of like new music. It'd be free entry, it'd be fun, and know that people would come anyway. And I think Shoreditch at that time had like a really good crowd. I feel like we called it a really special moment. It was this very undefined, almost undefined era of kind of like instrumental beat music, and I was like, this isn't really being booked in London, and I really want to have more of these nights. Met the people at the Old Blue Last, I met Russ, and had this idea for a new night which was called Streets of Beige. I mean, I was totally skint, I didn't have any money, and the night was like, had a budget, but it was just about making it happen and bringing new music to London. There was one particular low actually where I put on a real dream show, and I was trying to sort of book a series of events for someone, and the first event bombed really hard. It was actually the first Italo Johnson show in London. The show was incredible. It was one of the best DJ sets it was the era where I feel like they were DJing best, but it was just something way too ambitious, and I kind of got stung. I lost a lot of money. In fact, I had no money like at all. It was pretty desperate. Something in me like felt like I was set free and like something else was going to happen. I actually got a job at Rhythm Factory. That was like the breakthrough. I'd kind of been interning, and then I got the booking manager's job there. And that was like my first job in music, and so I started to do Streets of Beige there as well. I'd actually never done a night in a venue as big as the Rhythm Factory, so it was like, you know, just straight in at the deep end. I almost left a year to the day that I started, but it was one of the longest years, I think, of my life, because it was almost like a year of immense learning. And at the end of that, I came to work at Corsica Studios. Corsica Studios is my favourite club. Coming to work here was like one of the greatest, you know, things for me in terms of doing events. They wanted me to create a new night. And Find Me in the Dark originally was an idea for an all-day ambient and experimental festival, and it's that thing of being adventurous and like trusting like an instinct and a feeling, and it really links to those like very puritanical kind of concepts and experiences that people draw from electronic music. I feel like after that is when I sort of fully professionally matured. So Lobster Theremin, I suppose, linked to Streets of Beige really. It's kind of a strange time when I decided to start the label. It took like probably a year and a half of like just stating ideas, like, you know, the name came about through a random Facebook chat. And then Jay Palm's tracks played me some tracks, and I was just like, what is this track? And it turned out to be Equation, and that was one of the big tracks on the first release. And I suppose we'd spent a long time just pushing events, and when we came to do the label, a lot of people were very supportive, which was nice, and that helped to kind of propel it. I remember going through stuff on MySpace and it being great, and it took a while to change that over into how I found music on SoundCloud, but once I got it, I found it really easy to find a lot of new artists, people who weren't represented, people who just had these just incredible tracks, and it was like, why aren't these coming out? Like, why has no one approached you? And, you know, With some of the artists, it actually had a few thousand plays, and it's like still no one had approached them, and it was like, this is an absolute sacrilege. This needs to be on vinyl. This is, you know, like a future classic. The Found lineup for our stage is like a bit of a dream in many senses. There are artists on there I've not booked before, and I think when you get given the opportunity to do something like a festival, you get an extra element of freedom in how you book it. With our stage at Found Festival, I suppose, hoping to bring some of that vibe into the tent, and it's having that nice mix of kind of, I suppose, lo-fi elements and kind of big room elements and live elements, and bringing everything together to give people like a spectral experience of what they can expect from, you know, house and techno, and the more forward-thinking side of that.